shopgear.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is Robby Vegas coming at you with another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. First one of 2020. I'm sitting here with Maddie Vegas, and I would like to wish you all a very happy new year, and thank you for having me for the first time last year from May up until now. So this will be our first full year as a podcast. I'm looking forward to it, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. You have just me, and I will be letting you guys know what's coming up in 2020 as far as horror movies, new albums that are coming out, what's going on in the wrestling world, and what tours are expected to take place in 2020. So let's get started. Dear, would you like to say hi to the listeners before I get started?
Hi, listeners.
All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the horror movies being released in 2020. We're going all forward, nothing backwards, no reflections in this podcast. So let's start with The Grudge. By the time you guys listen to this podcast, The Grudge is going to be out. That's January 3rd. This is a reboot from the original. This came out, I believe, when I was in high school, but I am looking forward to the remake because I do think it needs some updating. The original was pretty creepy, so hopefully they stay true to that. Then we're moving on to Underwater, January 10th. So this is a deep-sea horror film, and it centers around a crew of researchers, and an earthquake wrecks their underwater station. And then, of course, things get worse when there's some kind of monster that unearths itself because of the earthquake. I'm super interested in that. I'm a huge fan of the underwater horror movies like Jaws and Deep Blue Sea and all those kinds of things. So looking forward to that one for sure. Moving on to Color Out of Space. This is January 24th. Nicolas Cage is the star in this movie. This one is interesting. A meteorite lands in the yard of the Gardner family home, unleashing unimaginable horrors. Expect things to get very trippy, but we'll see how that actually goes. But Nicolas Cage is awesome in everything he's in, so I'm really looking forward to that one. And then moving on into January 31st, we have Gretel and Hansel. I don't think I need to really describe to you what that is. If you were ever a child, I think you realize what Gretel and Hansel is. And of course, that's just more in horror movie form. From there, we're moving into February with the release of The Lodge. And this takes place, of course, in the winter, in a lodge, when a fiance takes over her stepchildren for the holidays because her husband's called in to work. And, of course, when things start to thaw out, there's some kind of frightening event that derails the whole trip. That kind of reminds me of The Thing. If anybody's a fan of The Thing, I'm pretty sure we're going to see something similar in this movie. And then we move on to After Midnight, which comes out on Valentine's Day. This is actually about a man whose life and sanity crumble because his girlfriend disappears. And, of course, her departure coincides with some kind of monster that's determined to break into his home. So let's just assume that the monster got her, and that's why she disappeared. There's a lot of things coming out on Valentine's Day, though, because Fantasy Island is getting a reboot. Of course, that was a 70s TV show, but now it's going to be turned into a horror movie. The TV show wasn't really a horror film, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. And also on February 14th, a movie called VFW, which is actually a comedy horror. Maddie Vegas just knocked over something. I'm sure you heard that. I promise you she wasn't throwing anything at me. Was definitely not a candle holder coming at my face. Right?
Definitely not. No candles. No. 2020, we've looked ahead.
Yes, we're looking ahead, folks. Stop it. All right. So VFW comes out also on Valentine's Day, and this is kind of a modern-day Return of the Living Dead. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This is going to be a horror comedy, and a deranged drug dealer and a relentless army of punk mutants are trying to break into a VFW. And I'm sure it's going to be filled with way too much blood and things that don't make sense, and it's going to be hilarious. So I hope you guys all check that out. End of February, we're looking at February 28th for The Invisible Man. I think they're going to take it a little bit darker. So after a series of weird incidents where a woman thinks that the death of her husband is a hoax, she starts to see things that prove that he actually might still be around. And of course, he's an invisible man hunting her down. So sticks kind of true to the original, but it's going to be a little bit darker. And hopefully it doesn't stray too far, because that's one of my favorite all-time movies. A Quiet Place Part 2 comes out on March 20th. I won't do any spoilers for that, because some people may not have seen Part 1 yet, but hopefully, if you haven't, then you will look into that now. So here's an interesting one. May 15th, there's another series of the Saw movies coming out. This is actually going to be starring Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. There's not a whole lot known about it. They're still working on the title for it, but I just think that those two in a Saw movie is a funny concept. So let's see if they keep it true to what Saw is, or if you're going to get a little more comedy out of it, but just a little something different. And then, of course, June 12th, this is huge news in the horror community, is they're doing the Candyman. And, of course, Tony Todd is actually coming back and continuing his role as the Candyman. That's huge. Anybody who's a big horror movie fan is probably really looking forward to that. That's June 12th once again. And I just recently met Tony Todd, and he was absolutely incredible. Nicest guy in the world, and it's so cool to see him returning for that role that he made very famous and very popular in 1992. So we also get another Ghostbusters movie, July 10th, and this is actually going to focus around the Ghostbusters grandchildren. So this should be pretty interesting, and obviously it's going to be a horror comedy, not just a horror movie, but still worth mentioning. July 31st, we got Morbius, which is actually a Marvel movie. And it's about Michael Morbius, who is a scientist, and he tries to find a cure for a rare blood disease and accidentally turns himself into a living vampire. The catch is that he's disgusted by having to survive on humans, so he chooses to prey upon criminals that he thinks are unworthy of life. So coming from that, we have a third installment in the Conjuring series. That's going to be September 11th. So we know the Conjuring series all take place around the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are real life people, and these are real life situations. So these movies are all based on true events. So this is one of their most famous cases of all time. This is the first time a murder suspect claims possession to try and get out of trial. And it's a famous case, and of course, I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you've read any of their books, you probably know how this turns out, but I would definitely check that out. These are especially scary because these things actually did take place. Moving on from that, October 16th, we have The Witches. Anne Hathaway is going to be the star of this movie. This is also a reboot, so anybody who saw the original knows what this one's all about. Anybody who has not, go check it out. It's an awesome movie, and I'm not going to spoil it from there. And then the same day, October 16th, which is the one I'm looking forward to the most, is Halloween Kills, which is the sequel to the newest Halloween that, of course, came out tail end of 2018. So, in this movie, we got Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace coming back into the fray, and if you don't know who they are, then you're probably not a fan of the Halloween series. I would suggest that you go back and watch the original Halloween movies, but I won't spoil that for you either. And then, of course, we move on to November 20th, we get a classic monster film, Godzilla vs. King Kong, which is going to be huge. And then we move on to a few movies that don't have release dates yet. We have Boys in the Wood, which is going to be a horror comedy. There's not much known about this right now. It's four city boys go out, kind of like a rite of passage, find themselves prey to a huntsman, and there's all kinds of hallucinogenic things and laughs and chaos that ensue from there. So I'm looking forward to that. I love a good horror comedy. And then, of course, the last one that also does not have a release date right now is Fear Street. And this is the start of a trilogy. So we're going to get the first one this year. And it's actually based on the books by R.L. Stine. And of course, you know R.L. Stine, he wrote the Goosebumps books. So if you grew up in anywhere near the same time frame that I grew up, the Goosebumps books were huge for you as well. So that's the rundown that I'm giving you guys of horror movies that I need you to check out this coming year. Now we're going to jump into the music side of things, but before we do, I need you guys to check out one of my sponsors, UnchainedMuscle.uk. Unchained Muscle will get you ready for the gym every way possible as far as what you're wearing. I'm talking leggings, tank tops, t-shirts, shorts, hoodies. We got shaker bottles, we got gym bags, we even got baseball caps. Whatever you need, check it out. Use code RVegas20, save yourself 20% at checkout, and keep this podcast going. Everything that you purchase helps us keep going. So make sure you check out Unchained Muscle. They're amazing, and they have a mental health charity section. Anything you purchase in that section, a portion of the proceeds will go to mental health charity. UnchainedMuscle.uk. So, going to give you a quick rundown of bands that are supposed to be releasing albums in 2020. Some of these are rumored, some of these are confirmed. Some of them we got the jump on just because of who we've had on the podcast in the past, and then we're going to talk about the tours to follow. So the new album's coming out in 2020. First one we're going to talk about, the LA Guns are going to be recording a new album, as we found out last week when we had Ace Von Johnson on the podcast, who is the rhythm guitarist for the LA Guns currently. Vixen will be in the studio making a new album in 2020. Madam X, the Scorpions, that's a big one. Didn't think I'd ever hear anything new from them. Super excited about that. Ozzy, of course, we all know because the single is already out, is releasing a new album. Arch Enemy is going to be releasing a new album. The Deftones are going to be releasing a new album. Seven Dust, Suicide Silence, Metallica, Deep Purple, the Foo Fighters, In This Moment, and Megadeth. I'm sure there's going to be a ton more new albums in 2020. Those are just the ones that we talk about on the show as far as metal and rock are concerned, and I'm looking forward to all of them. Surprised to see Deep Purple on the list. Foo Fighters is going to be great, of course, and we're going to talk about some of these bands in some upcoming episodes because we're going to do a breakdown of the top 50 new metal albums of all time, and you should look for those within the coming weeks. So on to the next metal and rock tours that are happening in 2020. Some of these are confirmed, some of them are just rumored. Biggest one that we've been talking about for the last few weeks is Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett. I am super excited for this. We already got our tickets. We're ready to see it. New Era Field. It's going to be huge. That's the only thing I could say about that one. Kiss is on tour right now, wrapping up the final leg of the farewell tour, and they're bringing David Lee Roth, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. Kiss and David Lee Roth is a pretty heavy combo. The Black Crowes are going on tour. Journey's going on tour. Here's another one that I can't wait to see. The 69 Eyes with Wednesday 13 is going to be another huge one. I can't wait to see that show either. There's a few other supporting acts on that bill, but those are the two main. Journey is going to be going on tour. Metallica rumored to be on tour. Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, and Iron Maiden also going on tour. Styx will be on tour in 2020. Pearl Jam, Korn, Ozzy, Yes. The Beach Boys will be on tour in 2020. Figure that one out. Santana, Foreigner, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and The Who. All bands rumored to be on tour. So that's going to be a huge year for rock and metal music, and that's not every tour. Those are just, again, touching, skimming the surface. Stuff for you guys to look out for. We don't know when these tours officially start, so make sure you check in with these bands, follow them on social media, or check their websites, however it is you keep up with your music, and just make sure you know when they're coming your way. So now, one quick thing we're going to talk about before we go is actually wrestling news. So it's Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season for any WWE watchers. So we all know that Royal Rumble kicks off the road to WrestleMania. So we're going to have a lot of online polls and things like that going on the All Bets Are Off Twitter. We're trying to push that out there just to give you guys some extra content so you're not just waiting every Sunday to hear a new episode, but you could actually participate. Let us know what you got going on. That's ABAO Pod. Let us know what you think. Check out the polls. Let us know what you want to hear more of, what you like, what you didn't like, whatever it is, just check it out. So I'm really excited for wrestling this time of year. It just feels different. There's like an electricity in the air. It's the biggest wrestling show that there ever was and ever will be. It's WrestleMania. Tell us what you think. Who do you think is going to be in the main event of WrestleMania this year? Who's winning the Royal Rumble? We do have an episode coming up where we're going to discuss the Royal Rumble and the previews and things like that. So once we dig into that, we want to hear your feedback on it as well. This will also be a big year for AEW. This is going to be their first year as a company from start to finish. AEW just debuted officially in October, so they haven't been around that long just yet. So we're going to keep tabs on a lot of AEW and try and bring you whatever content that they have coming out. And who knows, maybe they have another big pay-per-view that they want to rival WrestleMania. It would be interesting to see if they wanted to try that. I know they still have a long way to go, but it's worth talking about. It's worth discussing. So some more stuff about the All Bets Are Off podcast is we're going to be doing a lot more interviews. We're going to have a lot more new segments. Like I said, the top 50 new metal, the wrestling pay-per-view previews, and if there's anything else that we can bring you that you have an idea for, let us know. We want to hear it. So today's podcast was basically just to give you a brief description of what's coming up in 2020 as far as the topics that we like to discuss on the show, and we just want to thank you for having us and allowing us to be in your car, your living room, your stereo, however you listen to this podcast, your computer. We hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're not going to keep you long today. Everybody's trying to get back on track from the holidays, and And we hope that you check out a lot of the things on this list, whether it be the horror movies, the music, or the wrestling. And we will be bringing you the best and the latest and greatest interviews and all of the above as the year progresses. So thank you once again. And before I let you go, I do want you guys to check out Insane Labs. The link is always in the description of the show. Use code RVegas30. It will save you 50% on your purchase. You have no reason not to try these products. I've never felt better, never looked better, I've never been stronger. And I owe it all to Insane Labs. If you check these out and you don't like it, what harm did it do? You save 50%. So the least you can do is just check it out. If you're a gym rat, if you're a wrestler, if you're just trying to be in better shape, maybe it's your New Year's resolution. I don't know. But whatever it is, check it out. Let us know that you liked it, and let our other listeners know that you liked it, and help keep this podcast going. Once again, that's Insane Labs, and the link is in the description of the show. So thank you. Very short episode. Lots to look forward to in 2020, and as the episodes progress, we will be telling you guys more and more in detail about these things. We may even do some of the reviews of these movies after we go to theaters and see them. Maddie Vegas will be back. Chaz will be back. We'll have a lot of other guests, and we will see you next week with a brand new, fresh, full-length episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.